I'm seeing many, many friends who I've been meeting over the years, but I'm also seeing many new friends, so it's lovely to be here again. COP has been an interesting experience as always, because you meet such an amazing variety of people and you hear many, many interesting stories. And then the sessions that are happening with the negotiations, where we get a little bit of flavor of those from time to time from some of the negotiators themselves. And then you get what the press reports. And so it's a very different perspective from many different directions. But of course, the hope is that we'll be able to do something together for a better world. And so the topic we chose for tonight is very much connected with what's going on at the exhibition city. But it's not so much the external things. You'll get to hear of plenty of those. And in fact, Brother Golo just mentioned a couple of things that are happening within the Brahma Kumaris in terms of seeds of change for the future. One was the renewable energy side of it, and we've been doing that not because of fashionable things that are happening today, but we've been engaged in that for the last 25 years, and Brother Golo was very modest, but in fact he's not just been the advisor, but he's been the lead person in the research and development of all our projects for renewable energy. Plantation of trees, that's been going on for a long time, but over the last 2 years in particular, young people created an app so that then people could be given help to know what type of tree to plant where, under what conditions, but also they could be giving ongoing sustenance so that then the trees could be maintained, and it wasn't again just a publicity stunt for a month or a year, but it was something that was being sustained throughout. And so over a couple of million trees in the last 2 years have been not just planted but also sustained. But there's another aspect, and that is, well, you're aware of the value of organic food, but there's another element that has been introduced, and that is yogic organic agriculture. And in fact, we just describe it as yogic agriculture. And that goes back to ancient traditions and the original sciences of agriculture, which was not just a question of the seasons and the seeds and so on, but also the special energy that prayer or meditation or silence is able to bring. And so this is now going to be, it's been happening for the last several years. And it was initiated grassroots. A farmer's family who were meditators in Maharashtra decided to experiment. Maharashtra had been going through very severe drought, and farmers were having a very hard time. And so this particular family decided to experiment with meditation in preparing the ground, in preparing the seeds, sowing the seeds, taking care of them, and then through the whole process of growth, then to come to the point of harvest. All of that happened with the family meditating together in the fields. And this is now being experimented in 70 different farms across India, and 4 different universities are involved in the research behind it. And the results from one particular university who started to do this quite some time ago is that the soil becomes richer, full of microbacterial nutrients and so on. The plant becomes healthier and stronger, more resistant to disease. It's able to produce the food that has greater nourishment value. So all of these things are happening. So that's what's happening on the external level. And I won't go into any more detail of that. You'd be able to go to our website and find out more details if you wish. But what I would like to focus on is what Brother Rajshekar mentioned, and that was the whole subject of awareness and consciousness. I remember when we started participating in climate change conferences in Copenhagen in 2009, it was very interesting because, in fact, Sister Sonia, who is here now, she had a team of people who she trained, and they were able then to explain what the connection was between consciousness and climate, because we had a stand, and people coming to the stand would see this headline, Consciousness and Climate, and that was the first question, well, how are these connected? We don't usually hear the context of both of these things together. And we were able to explain to people, whatever is happening in your mind, whatever's going on in your thoughts is going to impact your perception, your attitude, your vision, your actions. And so there's a direct line connection between what's in here and what's happening out there. And if we see what's happening out there, we see nature being exploited. That's a polite word, but it's been exploited, especially over the last century or so. Nature has always provided for us and sustained us with graciousness and generosity, abundance. But we haven't had that gratitude and spirit of thankfulness for nature. And in return, what we've done is not recognize the value of nature except in terms of a very physical, monetary resource. And so our exploitation, our aggression, our abuse of nature has created the imbalance that has resulted in the situation with climate today. And if we wish to restore balance, yes, it's possible, it's not out of question. And the way that we can do this is, again, it was our awareness that created what's happening now, and it's our awareness that can change things again and bring back a state in which there's harmony within nature itself and harmony between nature and humanity. How do I change my attitude towards nature so that instead of seeing a tree as money, and that's how trees have been seen for a long time, wood for my little cottage, my hut, or wood for the furniture that I use, and so there's a very specific monetary value we place on trees. Paper, maybe, whatever it is, but we see it in terms of dollars and pounds and rupees and so on. But today we're beginning to understand that trees are part of life. Trees are the lungs of the earth. Trees are the way in which we're able to receive oxygen. So when I begin to understand this even slightly, I begin to recognize that there isn't a value in terms of pounds and pence that we can place on nature. What can I do about changing my attitude towards nature? There's a very simple way, and when you're on a spiritual path, you begin to see that whatever is going on inside is what gets reflected outside. So if there's one expression I'd like you to carry away tonight from this event, it is the expression inside out. We try to change things outside, but in fact, that's difficult. And I would even sometimes say it's impossible. Trying to change things from outside We could spend a lifetime trying to do that, and it may still not work. How many of you have tried to change other people? Anyone tried? I have, and I haven't been successful. And then at some point I had to step back and say, well, it's not going to work like that. But what I have found is that if I change myself, then yes, there can be a greater impact on others, and maybe it can arouse within them a curiosity and a question. Well, how did this person change? And when that question comes to you, then you'll be able to tell them, this is how I changed. And so change can be infectious. You see change in one, and there's a ripple effect that goes further and further and further out. And so yes, each one of us can be instruments for change in that way, but it starts with me. I have to make that commitment for change within myself. And so sowing seeds of change is not about organic agriculture. There's a lot of people here with more information than I have. I'm seeing my young friend Priyanka in the front row, who does a lot of work with agriculture. But I'm talking about the change inside. And sowing the seeds of change begins with just the thought, I would like to change. I wonder how many who are sitting here have had this thought that there's something, maybe one habit, one particular trait that they would like to change. Anyone? I'm seeing just a few hands go up. Now there's a few more. But I'm sure there must have come a moment when you've said something and afterwards bit your tongue and said, I wish I hadn't. And so if you've spent time reflecting on that, then you've had the thought, well, maybe I'd like to change this. Maybe I'd like to be not as reactive as I was today, but it needs a little bit of time. Time to give myself the space, to have that space for reflection. Otherwise, we work hard, we're exhausted, we're tired, and by the time the head hits the pillow, we're gone. And so there isn't that space or time. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe there's insomnia, but I still don't take that time to actually reflect. Maybe I'm just struggling and wishing I could fall asleep, but it's not the best time to actually process what's going on. But I need to make a little bit of space. And even in fact, not even just to the end of the day. At the end of the day, probably we're too tired. Between whatever it is you're doing and the next thing that you have to do, there's usually just a tiny, tiny bit of space. You're a doctor, and one patient leaves and the other patient comes in. You're a business person, one client has gone, the other one is coming in. Or you're a teacher, you're walking from one classroom to the next classroom. So in many, many situations, we have that little tiny space. And during that time, that little space, instead of checking my mobile phone to see what was the latest message, instead of thinking about tomorrow or later today, can I think about, just for a moment, and takes only a moment, could I have handled things differently? Not even better, just differently. Somebody said something. Was I paying full attention to that? Or was I only half listening because there was another story going on in my head? Or did I just react, hearing half a sentence, and didn't even let the other one finish speaking? So just that moment of reflection immediately after an event, a conversation, a discussion, some activity, whatever it may have been. But if I can do that, then it means that I'm preparing myself accurately for the next encounter or the next step in whatever it is I'm engaged in. Because that process would have made me aware and alert, and I'm more ready for the next period of time. And literally, it's not a question of half an hour of exploration. It's just a little silent reflection and a dialogue with myself in those moments. And it's something you get accustomed to doing. How long does it take to create a habit? Must be many habits that you wish you could change. Well, it takes only a moment to create a habit. To get rid of bad habits isn't just a moment, but to create a good habit is just a moment. I have the thought and I do it, and the pattern has been set in motion, and it'll come up again and again and again. And repeat an action 3 times, and the pattern in your brain is beginning to change. Spirituality always told me that it was possible to change patterns of behavior and personality, because I used to think that personality was like, the stripes of a tiger, couldn't change them at all. But spirituality was telling me, yes, you can change. And in the last 30 years, the advances of science in consciousness have been enormous. And now, of course, they tell us that, yes, there is plasticity in the brain, and you can change brain patterns. Not that after age 7 you can't change. Yes, it's true that there are very well-defined patterns that are set, but definitely, if there's conscious effort that I make, then things can change, not so slowly. They can change quite quickly also. And so just develop this practice. Try it once or twice, and you begin to taste the sweetness of that. You begin to feel the benefit of that. And when you see some immediate attainment, well, that's the enticement. That's the attraction. Then you want to keep doing it. You want to repeat it. And you'll be able to see huge benefit. So what sort of seeds do we want to sow now? On one level, I would say it's to awaken and plant seeds through my actions, but the awakening is of the values and the virtues that we carry within ourselves. It's interesting that a long time ago, in the 90s, we were, of course, spirituality has always said values and virtues are the foundation of civilization. But in the 90s, we were experimenting in many different ways. And at one point, we asked people what would they like to see in a better world. 3 questions were asked. It was a project that we were actually invited to do by the UN, and we'd had the program in '86 in which it was the International Year of Peace, and there we had people give not money. Is there something more precious than money? Your time. Well said, time. And so we were asking people to give their time in terms of minutes of silence, positive thoughts, prayer, or meditation. And people gave very generously, and we gathered over 1 billion minutes of peace. And of course, that was just the external presentation. How many more minutes people spent in prayer? You start praying from your heart, you start meditating, you start silence, and you're not looking at the clock. It's not just 5 minutes, it might be 3 minutes, or it might even be 10, 15, maybe more. But it was a way to get people to understand that giving of themselves and giving time was important. And this project reached about 80 countries, I think. And it became the largest non-fundraising project for the UN for the Year of Peace. And we received 7 Peace Messenger Awards for that, different countries and our headquarters in Mount Abu. And as a result of that, one of the Under-Secretary Generals came to Mount Abu to say, can we do a follow-up project? And we were tired and we were exhausted, and we said no. And of course he was wiser than I was at that time, and he took the question and asked me to translate for him because our dadis, the seniors, spoke Hindi. They could understand English, but just for clarity. And a group of us were there with the dadis and with this gentleman, James Jonah, a wonderful person. And he said to the dadis, the UN would like you to do a follow-up project. And the dadis, of course, smiled broadly and said yes. And so he then looked at me and I went like this. So that's how that project got started. But it was very beautiful, actually. And we had 3 questions we asked people in. Finally, it turned out to be 128 countries across the world, which was all the countries that had a population of over 1 million at that time. The world map has changed considerably since then, but at that time it was a lot of countries and a lot of people. And the 3 questions were, how do you see your better world? How do you see relationships in that better world? How do you see yourself in that better world? And we had one golden rule, and that was whatever it is you share, and it was in small groups that they would be doing this, share it in positive language so that we create a positive vision. And so people would say, we see a world without war. Hold on, can you put that in positive language? And they'd get round to it and start talking about a world of peace. Or they'd say, I see a world without any illness. What's the positive of that? A world of health. It was very interesting. Sometimes it would take a group 20 minutes for 6 people to change their language to positive language. Sometimes it would take up to 40 minutes for a group to change their language, but it took time. And it took us about 6 months to go through the hundreds of thousands of responses that came in from all the countries across. And there were beautiful messages from shoeshine boys in Brazil, leper colonies in the Philippines, the Queen of Spain took part, princes and princesses were part of it. So it reached across the world, but also across all social strata. But the answers I can summarize in one word: values. People spoke about a world of values. And so we began another project, and that was then taking up the subject of living values. You want values, but where do you begin? And yes, of course, people generally say begin with the children, but that's also passing the buck. Let me begin with myself. And yes, I can help children also, but can I say I'm going to begin with following values myself? And so sowing the seeds of good actions for all of us for a better world, a world in which there's justice, equality, dignity, respect, love, peace, joy, all of these things and a lot more. If we want to have that better world, I need to make it happen first inside of me. I'm not sure if it was Mahatma Gandhi or one of his grandsons. There's been a debate about who said it, but that's okay. But the statement is, can I be the change that I would like to see happen in the world around me? And so, how do I sow seeds of values in my actions? A very, very simple start to that is to actually know that all of us have been created in the image of the divine. It's a tradition within all the faiths that reminds us of this. All the theistic traditions tell us that the Creator is reflected in the creation. And so we carry those qualities of truth, of compassion, of love, of goodness, of kindness. All of these things are already there. But the problem has been that there's been a disconnect. And the disconnect isn't just the disconnect with nature. We've been hearing a lot about that disconnect. But the disconnect is first and foremost between soul and my physical identity. I've got trapped in my external physical identity, in which I see myself only in terms of gender, age, color, nationality, religion, culture. It becomes a box in which I put myself and I say, I am this. And of course then others see me that same way also. But spirituality teaches me that I am not this package. I am the inner being, the spiritual being inside. And I am that soul, the spiritual being, a being of light, a being of peace. When we say Om Shanti, that's what we're talking about. Om, I am, Shanti, peace. People chant this, but we don't chant it. We feel it. In silence, to be Om and go inside, and to be able to experience that truly that is my original nature. If I can have a glimpse of this, and I can only do this for myself through silence, I can tell you it's very sweet, but you have to taste it for yourself. I can tell you that eating a mango is sweet. To my surprise, when I'd gone to London as a child, there were no mangoes. I was waiting for the summer and no mangoes came. And I realized that all my friends, this is now at the end of the 50s, so none of my friends knew what mangoes were. And if I told them that mangoes are sweet, they'd say, well, is it like an apple? Or is it like a peach? And I'd say, no, it's something else. So you have to taste it. And so when I say Om Shanti, can I remind myself that this is who I am? I am a being of peace. I don't have to struggle. I don't have to look for it outside. I'm not going to find it out there, that's for sure. You can travel the globe, and are you going to find peace? Very unlikely. But go on the inner journey and you'll experience it. But not only peace. Peace opens the door, and you travel through that door on that inner journey, and you discover love and truth and purity and joy. all human souls carry these intrinsic qualities within themselves. This is what the soul is made up of. Just as the body has all the elements of the earth within it, it's got proteins, carbohydrates, all the things that you know about. But the soul, it's made up of these qualities. And this is why, even though there's so much unrest and peacelessness, the heart's desire is to find peace, to find love, to find truth. And we've forgotten that we have those treasures within ourselves. So the journey inside is to be able to connect with my own eternal identity and experience all of these treasures. And in that state of awareness and awakening, I then translate these qualities into my actions, into my life. It then becomes a very natural transformation, and the actions of peace and love and truth are the actions that are going to bring a world of peace and love and truth. So it's actually not such a difficult thing. Another thing that makes it very easy is that it's the right time. You know, if you try to grow strawberries when it's winter, you have to provide a greenhouse, you have to provide the extra energy, and it still won't taste as sweet as the natural strawberries. And so, when it's the right season, things grow by themselves. You don't have to interfere, you don't have to do too much. Just give them love and good vibrations, maybe even sometimes some music. It's true. In the 80s, there were many experiments with biofeedback techniques, and they found that if plants were played sweet music, they grew better. But I don't even need music. I can just use my thoughts. If I give them good wishes and talk to my plants, I'm not going crazy, but they'll grow much better. The vibrations touch them. And again, I won't go into the detail of the experiments, but they're very scientific experiments that prove all of these things. So when I talk to myself, these seeds that are there within me begin to grow. And meditation is the conversation with the self and the conversation with the one above. And then I begin to see transformation happen in my life. And if a small group of committed individuals really have that intention of bringing about change, the world can change. I was reminded this afternoon that Margaret Mead had actually said that only a small group of committed individuals can bring about change, and this is the only way that change has happened in the world. And so this group that's sitting here tonight, all of us together can make big things happen through our change. I'm acknowledging that there's many powerful individuals here, many, and the change that you have in your life can bring about change in at least 100, but that's being very conservative. It can bring about change in 1,000, maybe more. And so definitely change is possible because it's the right season. It's the time for change. When things reach a critical point, when things reach an extreme point, things change. They can't move at that level of extremity for a long time. They change. And in India, they have a very interesting concept of time, very different to what we hear about in the West. If you travel across the globe, now we know we go around in a circle. If you look at the seasons, we see a circle. If you see leaves on a tree or a plant, do you see a straight line? Have you ever seen a straight line in nature? Ever? It doesn't work like that. Everything is part of a bigger circle or a smaller circle. And so the history of the world also goes through circles. There's a period that's called the Age of Truth, Satyug, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Copper Age, the Iron Age, and we again come back to the Golden Age. And the contrast between these two ages that join together, Kali Yuga, the age of death, the age of time limits, time constraints, the age of the machine, that's the Dark Age, the Iron Age, Kali Yuga. But next to Kali Yuga is Satyug, the age of truth. Now, how does this dramatic change happen from dark to light? Well, how does it happen out there? It's dark now, but it won't always stay that way. In some hours, it'll turn and there'll be light and the day will begin. Winter, and you see the trees with no leaves in the northern hemisphere at least, and a child thinks, how is it possible for this tree that looks so dead to come alive in spring? But it does. And that's natural, it's nature. And so there's a cycle there again. So humanity also goes through cycles. And we've been through the dark period for a long time. But what's ahead of us is the right season, is the right time to be thinking about values. It's a world of truth. And so human beings carry within themselves those seeds of change. It needs two things. It needs water, and it needs the energy of the sun. The water we provide by nurturing those seeds with our attention, our time. When I think about peace and I start practicing peace, I give it that attention, it'll happen. But I also need one other ingredient. The plants need the light from the sun, and the human soul needs the energy that comes from the Creator, the Divine. The light that the Divine is able to give us, the might, the energy that the Divine is able to give us. So that light connected with us, and we feel that connection, a personal connection. Through that connection, I receive the energy, the power. But through my own attention, I give it that love and water that's going to sustain that seed. And so the mechanism of change is not difficult to understand. The way to be able to do it is very easy. But I need to do it, and I need to do it for myself. And yes, I can inspire others when they see me become peaceful, when they knew me to be not such a peaceful person, to be a person who had anxiety, who had fear, who had concerns and was nervous and was upset. And now they see me stable, they see me peaceful, not passive, that's different. And a person who's experimenting with all of these things certainly isn't passive. They have extra energy that's coming from above that gives them power to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. But it's that power that comes from up above. And so experiment with peace. How many days? 3 days? Is that enough? Try it. Just the next 3 days, start your day with a focus on peace. And through the day, keep reminding yourself of Om Shanti. And if you don't remember the word, it's okay, just remember peace. Some of you knew Dadi Janki, who came to Dubai many times, and she passed away a few years ago, age 104, and she used to say to us, I tell myself Om Shanti 100 times a day. Something happens and I say Om Shanti. I hear something, I say Om Shanti. And so remind yourself of peace 100 times a day, and you'll find that it's very easy, very possible to become a peaceful person who's able to share vibrations of peace wherever they go. There's an expression we use in English, and it said, tread lightly on the earth. And it's talking about the carbon footprint, but more than that, it's talking about your behavior with nature, of course, but with other humans also. Can I tread lightly on the earth with peace, so that others may have space to tread on the same planet also? Give them space, give them that opportunity, allow them to do what they need to do also. And so peace in myself means not only am I inspiring peace in others, just as one person who's afraid triggers fear in a few others and many more others, in the same way, a difficult situation and one person who stays calm and peaceful is able to bring that atmosphere of peace to others around them too. Two stories I'd like to share about that. One, a story many years ago, and the roads in India are now brilliant. There's highways everywhere. This was in the 70s, and I'd only been meditating for about 5 years or so. But I'd already decided this is to be my life, and I was with some senior yogis, and we'd gone to a Kumbh Mela, one of those big gatherings that they have in India every 12 years. And we had to go back to Delhi early next morning. So I was in the back seat, the senior yogi on one side and another young sister accompanying us on the other side. And I could see just straight ahead. And it must have been, we'd left Haridwar at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we were going through this little village. And it was about 6 o'clock in the morning by then. And there was just a very soft, gentle light that was there. You couldn't see clearly, but you could see. And we're going through this sleepy village, and there's only one person on the road. No other car, no other people. And this one person seemed to be old, he was a little bit bent, and he was dithering whether to cross or not cross. And as the car moved, and it wasn't going very fast, but he couldn't make up his mind. And then suddenly there's an impact, and the car moves across the road, and it hits one of those three-wheelers, the rickshaws, and it hits that. It then moves across, and it hits a tree, and it stops. And it's one of those sturdy ambassador cars. Some of you from India would remember those. So got out of the car, and everybody's fine. The senior yogi has hurt her head a little bit on the bench, the seat in the front. And I look around, and I don't see the driver. And this had been a hired car and a driver, and couldn't see him. And then I suddenly noticed that there's this big gathering of men. I didn't see any woman there, but a big gathering of men, and there's a lot of noise that's growing. And I was 24, and instinct told me that the driver's in the middle of that crowd. And I didn't think, I just moved and went to the middle of that crowd, a young woman in a white sari, maybe the surprise of that, and the men parted to give me space. And sure enough, there's a driver right there, and they've started to beat him. And I go in front of him, and I put out my arms, and I think they were just so surprised that they stopped. And At that time, I couldn't speak Hindi very well, but I just said in broken Hindi, "Stop, stop, the police are coming." I didn't know that they were coming, but I just said that. But thankfully, within those few minutes, the police did come and they took the driver away. But those few minutes in which just the power of peace reached them and they stopped, and probably that man's life was saved. So even if there's many who are angry and upset, one person with peace, with help from above, and others can become peaceful also. And so imagine the power of this gathering, the power of this peace that we can all generate. How far can it reach? It can reach across to the world. And 1 million people? 1 million isn't a big number. Think about the billions of population. And 1 million people meditating? Surely we can bring about peace in the world. For the seed of change, when I decide to change. Another incident, and again, a little while ago, and we just had a program like this in Rio. No, Sao Paulo. Sorry, it was Sao Paulo. And the program had finished about 9 o'clock, and we'd all gone home. Next morning, one of the women who'd been in the program, one of the regular students of meditation, she was there at the center. Then after the morning class, we always have morning meditation and spiritual study together. So she wanted to speak to me, so I sat with her. And she shared a story from the night before. And she said that she had brought a friend with her, and they'd gone back to this lady's car. And she tried to put up her window, and it wouldn't go. One of those old-fashioned turnaround mechanisms, and it wasn't going. So then she looked, and what she saw was this young man with a gun pointing straight at her. And he said, "Give me your handbag." And she didn't have a handbag. She'd come to a spiritual program. She didn't need one. And she looked around and said, "I don't have one." And he said, "Give me your money." And again she said, "I don't have one. I don't have anything." And she hadn't. And she could feel his tension rising. And then she noticed that what she did have was some of the sweets that we usually give away at the end of the program. And these sweets were wrapped beautifully. And she saw this on her side, and she picked it up and she said, "I've got something very precious for you." And she gave it to him, and he smiled. And he went away. Real story. The power of toli, we call it toli, sweets. But just the intention of love. Let me give something. So really, experiment with peace, experiment with love, and just see the magic that happens. And I'm sure your own experiences will then confirm for you that yes, it's not so difficult to change myself or to change the world. So yes, we need the right time, the right season, and I believe it's the right time now for the world to change, because we all want change to happen. Our intentions are very powerful. We want things to change for the better, but also help from above. And I believe that help from above is available at this moment of transition, when it's time for the world to change from dark to light. It's time for the one above to intervene and give us that power and make it happen. And so values are the foundation of change, but also spiritual power. So spiritual power again. We have those powers. I'm thinking about the power of tolerance. Is tolerance a power? I think it is. I think there have been many occasions where we say, if I'd just had that little bit more tolerance, maybe things could have been different. And so, yes, tolerance is a power. To be able to adjust and flex with others in the situation is a power that I can have. To cooperate is a power. To be able to understand and discern something is a power. To be able to decide what I need to do is a power. All of these are things that we have to a certain extent, but we don't realize that we can actually enhance them and develop them and improve our lives through using these spiritual capacities. So the message for tonight is that you are the seed of change, but also the message is that definitely there's a better world ahead, and it's not too far away, and all of us together with help can make it happen. And what I'd like us to do now is to experiment. And I'll share my own thoughts as I meditate, and you can follow these ideas if you'd like to, or you can meditate in whatever way you want, whatever is comfortable and easy for you. But always the question is, what am I supposed to think in meditation? Am I supposed to stop my thoughts? The meditation of Raj Yoga is a little bit different. It's one in which you use the mind in an active way. And so I'll be sharing my thoughts. But also, before we move into the next phase, I just want to acknowledge the Environment Initiative team that's here from many different countries. Some of them are sitting here. Please, can you stand? And some of you are sitting here, especially the young ones here. Please stand. So a beautiful team that's been serving tirelessly. They leave home at 7 o'clock in the morning and come back at 11 o'clock at night. And so from Germany, from Denmark, from Poland, from France, from India, international citizens from UK, from Germany, from UK, and of course, from the UAE, definitely. So, and Nepal, our photographers are part of our team from Nepal. So I'm sure there's a few other young ones who I'm not seeing here now, but maybe they're still occupied. Oh, they're there at the back also. Okay, so thank you for being here and serving with your hearts. Let's have a few minutes in silence together. I go on an inner journey, going deeper and deeper till I come to the core of my being. A being of light, a being of peace. And I feel the peace within. And in this awareness of peace, I can feel the presence of the Creator. The love, the compassion, the truth, reaching each one of us. And in the stillness of peace, I absorb these qualities from the divine, and feel them awakening those same qualities within. And the vibrations of peace reach out to the world and touch the hearts of people everywhere. And people come together, connected with a thread of love. Recognizing that we are one family. And those vibrations reach all forms of life. And they feel safe, feeling the comfort of peace. And the vibrations reach all the elements, and nature becomes calm and pure. And the peace restores harmony amongst the family, all life, and nature itself. And we move towards a better world. Every moment of sharing God's light and love brings us closer to making that world a reality. Holding this vision, I come back to the awareness of the physical domain, carrying with myself this awareness of who I truly am, my connection with the divine, and with the whole of my human family. I just need to keep reminding myself in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, at night, every single day. Thank you for your attention, and carry this peace with you. And I want to acknowledge Sister Jyoti, who has been a tireless server here in Dubai and has served all over the UAE and other countries around. A person whose capacity for kindness and yoga has made so much happen here, and with whose generosity all of us have benefited and enjoyed very much our time here in Dubai. Thank you. Om Shanti.